over 10 years or around 10 years now since the end of that case. Courts deal with a whole lot of cases. Who knows what's happened to those papers? What I will say is that I heard from the security services once during the whole of the preparation of this case. And it was being able to defend this man for murder of a child after what he'd been through. I had to do so with one hand tied behind my back throughout, because the only information about what he had been through, I could only get from him. No other sources. There were sources with that information, but they were never forthcoming. Yes, well, it all started really with the preparation of the case itself. We only had his word to be able to tell us that he had the role that he did within the security services. And he was a mentally ill man. He was, as you've said already, susceptible to post-traumatic stress disorder, and a very vulnerable man when he did the work that he did. And that became true, that came to fruition after he left the services, of course, killed his son, found himself in a secure mental health unit. And we had to speak to this man who said that he worked for MI5. There's a criminal solicitor who deals with lots of people who suffer from severe mental health conditions. It's not the first time I've been told that someone works for MI5, and usually it doesn't turn out to be true. On this occasion, the case developed. His stories became more and more believable until finally it was confirmed, but confirmed only by one single document and very little further help by the security services.
It's extraordinary when you read the account in today's Times that I think the person who vetted him at MI6 said it was the highest possible score he has ever seen in these tests that have been given just to rate how mentally stable someone is. How did a man like that end up being sent by MI6 abroad in order to bring back what must have been vital information? But how did the security services trust someone who was so unstable to go abroad and do that work for them?
Well, one wonders why they do these tests in the first place if they're still going to send people to perform these tasks. Who knows? You'd have to ask them. I believe they've been approached for comment by the hard-working journalist Gabriel Pogrund, who told this full story yesterday, or today, I should say, in the Sunday Times. But perhaps these tests are only to see whether or not they can do the job, not how they would be affected afterwards. Which, if true, and of course I don't know, is very sad. It's very sad that that's the case. Hopefully, things like this being brought to light by good journalism will perhaps change policy within the security services to protect vulnerable people and those close to them who could be harmed as a result of those vulnerabilities.
Liam, how much information did the jury have in this trial, which again, we must repeat, was taking place mostly behind closed doors because of the sensitive information concerning the security services? But were the jury aware of this score, for example, of what he was asked to do when he was sent abroad in order to spy for the intelligence services? How much information did the jury actually have?
Well, while I'm happy to speak to you today, there are certain things that I'm not allowed, even now, to be able to discuss. And to tell you exactly what the jury were told, I cannot say. I'd get myself into a whole lot of trouble if I did, and possibly rightly so. What I can say is that the defendant in the case, my client, was able to tell his full story. And to be fair to the security services, he was released from the Official Secrets Act to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. But that's the only assistance that they gave him in this trial.
It's also reported in the paper that the court now says that it has lost all its papers on the case and is unable to provide a reason as to why. This is referring to the jury accepting that your client had a mental illness, but nevertheless finding him guilty of murder. Does this happen a lot? Courts losing all paperwork relating to a case?
Well, I think you're trying to get me to say something that I would rather not, because we can't really speculate as to exactly what's happened here. But what I can say is that it's been over 10 years or around 10 years now since the end of that case. Courts deal with a whole lot of cases. Who knows what's happened to those papers? What I will say is that I heard from the security services once during the whole of the preparation of this case. And it was being able to defend this man for murder of a child after what he had been through. I had to do so with one hand tied behind my back throughout, because the only information about what he had been through, I could only get from him. No other sources. There were sources with that information, but they were never forthcoming.
What does the future look like, Liam? This was 10 years ago. Again, I know we have to be careful and sensitive, and I appreciate you're very limited in what you can say, but how's your client doing now? And is there some form of recourse, or can the decision be appealed? What happens next?
Well, the situation with cases like this, especially murder cases, people who are serving life sentences, and it is one of the concerns about the court losing those papers, is that we have to hold paperwork forever, perpetually, in a case like this, because an appeal could come at any time. And we are always looking at things, reviewing things, discussing things with our clients at later stages when they are serving life sentences, because if something arises that gives a rise to an appeal, and investigations like this by good journalists can often lead to something like that, then that's something that we would look at. As far as we are now, that isn't happening, but it's something that will always be reviewed.
Liam, thank you so much for giving me all this time. I really appreciate it. Liam Kotrie there, director of Mary Monson Solicitors, who represented Abdi during his murder trial. Now, MI5 and MI6 were approached for comment. A government spokesman said it is a long-standing principle that the government does not confirm or deny allegations, assertions or speculation about the activities of UK intelligence agencies.